Just for a change, I would like to stand, not to sit, because I really want to see my panelists here. It's easier to kind of pose questions from here. And so we have such a wonderful topic, a very relevant one in today's times when we're seeing the conflict taking place in key geographies, be it Ukraine, be it the Middle East, and of course it merits a conversation on how we can build a resilient supply chain and a connected risk management. So I have these experts to talk about it, and as a journalist my role is only to dive into it and to understand it, but to get the meat out of it, I have these people with me. So I will start with a basic premise. I want to ask a question which is maybe all of you will have to maybe contribute to that answer, just to build some context to what we are going to discuss. So tell me, let me start with the lady first, okay? Deepa, with you. Give me a sense of what are the bigger challenges and what is the situation like in the supply chain risk management, and what are we doing to address it at the moment from your standpoint, from your industry context?
Okay, hello everyone, and first of all, thank you Businessworld for this opportunity. It's great to be here. So the question actually covers the whole topic. So I'll go step by step, right?
In your brief, like an expert view, yes.
Yes. So basically, if you look at challenges in supply chain, there could be challenges around short-term, long-term. There could be geopolitical challenges. There could be things like macroeconomic scenarios which may impact. There could be climatic situations which can go against you. In food supply chain, you can have things like your temperature as small as your vehicle breaking down and the temperature not working fine, so the whole stock getting spoiled. You could have the demand and supply gap. That could be a challenge. So there are multiple challenges that happen, right? But when we look at it, of course, I mean, it's always, when you talk about supply chain, it's about doing things at step by step, one thing at a time, that is for the short term. And for the long term, again, you have to then start working on the strategies to build the long-term strategy so that whatever you create, it helps you achieve sustainable value. And that's what we all strive towards being in supply chain in the business. So just to give you a context, in terms of, let's say, food, which is a very, very different category, and it has many more nuances, which could be your shelf life, it could be availability, it could be regulatory requirements that you have because of the government. It could be the duties, which could be very different for different structures, different items or different categories. So considering all of that, then you build your short-term and your long-term strategies. And then again, the cost again becomes a big important parameter. So yes, I mean, I'm giving a very, very generic and broad overview, but we can definitely pick up details later. Right. I would stop at this, otherwise I'll keep going on. So,
Mr. Garg, I want an initial comment from you that when it comes to the Indian supply chain ecosystem, what are the top 3 big challenges that you are seeing in the market today?
You see, one of the challenges is the visibility. The organization, the departments, they don't have the visibility of the total visibility of the operations as such, whether it is procurement, whether it is production, whether it's distribution, or whether it is the end customer. Yeah. In order to address the visibility part of it, what you need is the data. Until unless we have the data in hand and we can analyze the data, we cannot reach to the conclusions in terms of the actions to be taken, so that that uncertainty which prevails in the market today due to many factors which Deepa just shared, in terms of whether they are geopolitical, they are natural calamities, they are climate change, there are ups and downs in the supply and demands. And so due to all these disruptions, so these are the biggest challenge which we are facing today, how to address these risks, how to mitigate this risk so as to make it a robust supply chain.
Great. Mr. Mishra, let me ask you a different question here. Let me dive into, since we have around 35 minutes and I have to get in a lot of topics to touch. What is your idea of building a supply chain leadership, that can maintain resilience and, and can withstand what all disruptions are happening? What is the best way to establish that setup according to you?
Thank you. So I would say basically supply chain resilience is basically the region starts with when it talks about the networking, whatever the resilience we are facing nowadays. So it's a ability of supply chain function to withstand the disruptions which are unexpected in nature.
Right.
So when we say we have to strengthen our ability to withstand the disruption by way of certain key measures, like I would, it's a long topic, but I will make it short with some keynotes. Like we have to strengthen our planning, we have to basically improve our inventory management and buffer stock capability and all that, diversification of, dependency on the primary supplier or to have a multiple supplier in pipeline to, address the disruptions, unexpected disruption. And the important aspect, as I like the topic today, when you talk about human or tech. So technology is now playing a key role in supply chain management. So we have to, introduce a accurate, high-tech, the technology in our supply chain day-to-day management, so that it can address the unexpected disruption. And last, not the least, the important role is the people management. So that also plays an important role. So this way we can address the resiliency and withstand the disruption.
All right.
That's it. Thank
Wonderful. Vijendar, do you, what is happening in your industry? Who do you look up to who has modeled or made a perfect model of this interconnected risk management? Who do you follow and want to become like in your industry?
If I have to say the supply chain, of course, no. So no supply chain is immune to any of these challenges. Every industry and within industry, every organization, even within a same organization, every business unit will have their respective different challenges. What we see outside is completely different. But we, as being the core members of the supply chain, if you touch upon any core member of the supply chain, he will rattle with several challenges or criticalities for them. What actually supply chain team does is basically 99.95% of those criticalities or challenges they manage internally on their own. That's the capability of the team. And what you see is outside, just this maybe for example, we talk about Apple. So Apple has created such supply chain which is really so agile, and then even if something goes wrong with China, they have a China plus one strategy, ABCD. That's which we see. But if you ask me, it's every respective supply chain team, of course, is the best to themselves, and as long as the business is moving successfully with their efforts, then I would definitely like to give the credit to the respective team of the respective company. What we have done, maybe I would like to say that irrespective of comparing within the infrastructure industry, as our organization, which I consider as the best, is planning all these supply chain criticalities well ahead. And as we talked about, you said what is resilient supply chain? If I go by the literal meaning of resiliency is the ability to spring back. And that's only possible when someone has really gone through the planning. And also there have been lots of actions in the pipeline, so that he is able to trigger or activate the specific action which has been in the pipeline, depending upon what kind of a criticality actually is there in front of him. So that's how, which I would say is the supply chain in today's world is performing. So gone are those days where we were dealing with only the suppliers, place an order, plan, get material and supply on the line, matter is done. No. So now we are more exposed to several other such parameters which are not in the control of supply chain. So real skill comes in there. What is my internal to the supply chain, what are those criticalities, and external to the supply chain, what are those criticalities? How do I map my organization, and within the organization, every business unit, and every business unit within that, what are those key high spend components or a high sales revenue items or very high gross margin items, mapping them on X and Y axis in terms of criticality to the business and in terms of criticality to the supply chain. That's how actually which maybe in our business, that's how which we have done. So coming back to the question, we can't actually single out any one single organization or entity that they have done the best. Everyone have their respective challenges, and then everyone definitely have their internal set of actions in place.
Absolutely, I think that's so true. I mean, it's very specific to the sector and to the industry. Shikha, if we look at the telecom sector, what are the unique challenges in terms of supply chain risk management that you often bring to the board table and have to discuss?
So first of all, if you see the telecom sector in general, I think we have first of all gone through a huge economic challenge, right? And the whole sector has seen a lot of consolidation with respect to the market players. Then our supply chain is essentially electronic supply chain, and we have seen very, very disruptive times post-COVID, because of semiconductor crisis. And we have seen a lot of change and evolution also, I would say. Give an example, and Cisco has been on, let's say, in Gartner's list, year on year is the #1 supply chain company, and give you an example of why probably, right? And how does companies can change or use technology to evolve with time to, really cover some of the supply chain challenges. See, as many of my colleagues here, stressed upon, what is needed is end-to-end visibility, right? What is needed is supplier diversification. So nearshoring, there are a lot of things which is needed in order to really ensure or mitigate risk associated with supply chain, right? How do we bring it all together? There are several pieces of it which a company has to manage. Take example of Cisco just to, let's say explain. Semiconductor would be a key component of most of the products they would be making, and suddenly the lead times in semiconductor went from 4 weeks, 5 weeks to a 32 weeks, 60 weeks cycle. And there are disruptions, there are challenges. How do we mitigate them? There is end-to-end visibility today which is available if I have to see each component wise, not just a tier 1 supplier, not just ODM, but my EMS, then the raw material to the nth level. And just to give a sense of it, if there is an earthquake in Japan, right, and you, within 10 hours, Cisco will have an assessment of 300 suppliers who are going to be affected by that, and what is going to be impacting its each of its, let's say, 1100 products. And that visibility is there or would be there, which can be shared with the customer as well. So, that's how really the digitization is really evolving and impacting each one of us. And if you really see post-COVID, there is a lot of surge in the supply chain tools, and companies have actually started really investing into it rather than just thinking we should invest. But now again, there is a plateau which is coming, but I think it's time we should really think how can we make it more transparent, how can, whether it is digital twin tower, WMS, DMS, whatever it is, how can I make transparency a part of life so that I can serve my business? Because we have really moved along back from a product-oriented supply chain to a customer-oriented supply chain.
Absolutely, and there are mature technologies present, solutions present right now, which can be made better, of course, but they are present. To round off this first, question set, let me come to you, Manish, with your set of pain points that you are dealing with when it comes to supply chain risk management. If you could briefly talk about that.
So particularly the industry that I am from, right?
Yes.
I mean,
A unique.
It has got a lot of challenges of its own, since it specifically touches on a lot of other industries, which is an input for our industry, like particularly in construction and services space later on. So geopolitical issues, or at the same time climate issues, and as all other panelists, they also touched upon a lot of commercial issues, financial issues, because of so many, of course, because of a lot of political and all other issues. This industry gets impacted with everything, right? And the set of categories that we procure, if you look at the quotient, spend quotient, it has got like almost 40% of the spend revolves around the human intervention, where labor component is specifically. So it is, a really challenging time. At present, if you talk about tech intervention in our industry, it is quite limited. Unlike automotive or IT or other industries, particularly in manufacturing, you would find AI or any tech intervention has really been helpful in navigating through its challenges and helping with the predictive analysis and stuff. Like in previous session, the person who was introducing or talking about the Gen AI, at the time the question that I put up, it was entirely reflecting the challenges that we actually have. So if we are erecting a new institution, if we are developing a new project altogether, we do not really have a data available around it to kind of create a sort of predictive inputs to maneuver and map those challenges and preempt solutions for that. But somehow in last couple of years, a lot of these new institutions, they have come up with a lot of data around international framework from different countries, from similar geographies, that is helping a bit in countering these challenges in our industry in India. And I think last couple of years has seen a lot of talks and also investment from these organizations whose core business is construction, and then later on managing these real estate properties. So now it is slowly building up. So resiliency in our case, it is like, of course, it is going to take a lot of time, because these SKUs are
I'm going to
different.
come to you with a set of questions about the solution part.
Certainly.
So this was the first round to understand the pain
sure.
points of each one of your sectoral pain points, and
Yeah.
let's move to the second round. And I
Sure.
want to start this with Sanjeev ji, with you. Now the expert part of it, what do you think, what strategies can be adopted to mitigate risks in order to build resilient supply chains according to you? And also what is happening geopolitically in US, for example? How does that pan out, factor in the entire, they are interconnected in some way. Do you think that's going to be a positive shift, or there are more challenges to come?
You see, in order to design the strategies for resilience, one got to identify whether the risks are internal or external. And it will depend from industry to industry, sector to sector. The risks which are internal in nature can be managed by the management and the organization per se, which are under control in their area of influence. When it comes to the external part of the risks, which we just talked about, the natural calamities, climate change, social, economical, and political risks, we got to understand, which risks apply to your organization and how they are impacting you. The broad guideline of setting up a strategy for resilience is basically either you accept it. Why do you accept it? You can do the cost-benefit analysis of whether the cost outweighs the benefit of doing resilience. If the cost is higher and the magnitude of the organization is not big, he doesn't have any option than to accept it. The second pillar could be, you could be reactive. When we talk about reactive strategy, then you got to analyze, okay, which has impacted me? Which risk has impacted my business, which I need to address? Yeah? So that could be related to supplier, that could be related to geography, that could be related to geopolitical situations in those areas. And third could be proactive. Yeah? Proactive can be designed strategies where we know, yes, let's walk through the end-to-end supply chain and see what all risks can be there. Right from suppliers to the manufacturing to the warehousing, logistics, distribution. Basis this, we can design these strategies. We can do supplier diversification. We can do geographical diversification so that one is not dependent upon a particular region, a particular geography, or a certain set of suppliers. We can build in redundancy in the supplier so that we are not dependent in terms of the uncertainties or risks which arise at that point of time. Another strategy which can be used is in terms of, like there are few risks which are out of your control, like rising oil prices, which you don't have any direct control upon, or there is fluctuation in the currencies, yeah, where you don't have any direct control upon, or there are certain political decisions, like you said in US. Same goes for Ukraine. I mean, every country after the elections of US start trying to think, okay, it was Joe versus. So, I mean, in which way the new president is going to evolve strategies for states is going to impact many of the countries in the world. Yeah?
Right.
So we got to design our strategies based upon
On these, right.
on these parameters.
Right. Deepa, would you like to add to this and also keep your sectoral insights in mind? Your answer is addressing your sector.
Yeah.
So what would be the best way to build a resilient supply chain?
So for me, normally I would summarize it in 4 R's, what I follow. Be responsive, right? So responsive, again, technology is the enabler and communication is the enabler. These are the 2 things I'll keep aside. So you have the visibility, you have the traceability, you have the information, so what you do, you are being nimble. So the team has to really act on the spot, do what is possible in the short term, immediate term, right? So responsiveness is number 1. Number 2 is, of course, to build redundancy. He also mentioned that. So when you say build redundancy, you mean you have alternate suppliers. You always have a plan B. When you do supply chain, you need to have a plan B, okay, for every situation. And of course, you focus on your top 80% spend and you work around that, and then remaining 20 is more tactical and operational, right? So redundancy is very, very important. Third is to make it risk averse, right? So how do you make it risk averse? Is by building contingency plans. So you have your categories, you know what are the possible things which can impact in the short term, medium term, long term. And then you already have a plan designed to take care of those, right? So those plans could be certain things which could be even unforeseen circumstances, like if you have a strike, then what do you do, right? And it could be as simple as that, sending a communication out to people, or so anything and everything has to be covered, whatever you can think of. And last but not the least, of course, you have to be resilient. So for being resilient is very, very important. I think 2 things are very important here. One is all of this will help you to build resilience, like redundancy and your risk averseness or BCPs. But at the same time, communication lever is very, very important. So one is to keep the whole organization informed on what's happening, because that's what helps you control what is not in your control, right? So for that, again, I have 3 C's that I follow. which is
I like
connect,
this approach, yes.
connect, collaborate, and communicate, right? So you build that connection, you form a team, you keep them informed. So for example, pandemic. I have all the time been working in QSR space, food industry. And during pandemic, we had multiple challenges, and we had spoilages, we had wastage. There was a lot of cost impact that happened, right? So how did we manage that? And there were stakeholders to be taken care of. So communication was the most. We formed a team, and we kept on we had periodical meetings designed. We kept on communicating, kept them informed, took joint decisions, and therefore then we could address it. So 4 Rs and 3 Cs, that's what works for me. Thank you.
Wonderful. So we have telecom and electronics sitting together. So let me come to this side now. Starting with you, what are the best ways in your category to develop a resilient system that foresees problems, addresses them before they crop up? What can be done in that direction?
So when we think about, when we are talking about foreseeing the resilience and the issues so that we can prevent proactively, then according to me, it should have the proper planning in place, and depending upon the real-time data and the transparency, basically we have to act quickly and to find out the vulnerables, so where we can take proactive actions and mitigate those risks. And ultimately, when we are trying to make the supply chain resilient, so it has to be self-dependent on the, basically it should not depend on the, mostly on the outside world. You have to find out your own strategic action in-house actions so that you can mitigate those risks.
Right.
That's it.
By the way, which country has, in the pecking order, where does India stand in terms of having the most efficient supply chain? I mean, overall, like if you say globally, where do we stand in the pecking order? Do we stand anywhere like in the top 10?
I don't think so. I mean, not as yet, but somehow, yeah, but we are climbing up much faster. I think in a couple of years of time, the way tech landscape is actually emerging up across the categories, and the way, the adaptation has started, I think there's a sheer possibility. And since there has been a demographic shift in, looking at China as the warehouse for all the commodities, this Make in India initiative has put in a lot of scope around it. So I think
Since you have the mic in hand, quickly, 2 minutes, we have less time. What is the best way to address and build a robust system in a supply chain in your area? What would be that solution to it?
Particularly in construction, I would say that I think all of the co-panelists, they have covered up a lot because you see supply chain in all the industries more or less, certain aspects are quite generic. Now the specific ones would be, of course, the preventive approach works more in construction supply chain.
Okay.
And you prepare, you plan much ahead of the actual, action that starts.
Right.
So
like advanced planning.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
So without that, you can't do it because these are very large spends. The process starts from the need identification before that feasibility. So of course,
Right.
most of these things are like the project management scenario entirely is implied upon the entire process chain.
Great.
So of course.
Shikha.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll cover it from telecom perspective
yes.
because most of it is covered by
From,
everybody.
yes, the specialist
Right,
perspective.
and if you see really in telecom sector, as with infrastructure, we are a huge capex driven sector. Every year, just from Airtel's perspective, we do more than 50,000 crore of procurement year on year, right? So technology is a constant changing factor. And the products which we buy are not commodity. The products are made for Airtel. So there is a unique design which is involved, which can work on your frequencies and everything else, right? So how can we be resilient is number one, that you have to always be innovative and you have to always be ahead of the curve. You cannot rely on one particular OEM or ODM. You have to continuously, keep doing new product innovation with another partner, with diverse chipset and diverse raw material to the nth level. You should have that transparency, you should have that tiering, so that you're not dependent on one partner per se, right? That's one, one part of that. The second part of that is, it is actually a huge problem if you really see in today's supply chain. The people are very important, and there is a risk, or they're sitting that we do not have much qualifying, or let's say qualified people who are working in this particular area. So how can you, enable them with technology so that you can work with lesser amount of people? Just to give you a sense of that, if my one link goes down today in any area, we get a ping, and we know that we have to proactively connect and resolve it within 2 hours. So technology really helps, so please automate, and that's the second really part of it. And the third part of it is really from the cost perspective, because essentially that is a very important factor with huge procurement. So you have to really see that, what is the cost factors going to be in a particular area, how can I prepone it, I can do a more value buying, longer term deals, investments, and can I do make in India, can I do localization, can I do near sourcing right from, maybe from Taiwan or from Vietnam, can I bring it down to India? So that's how, these are the couple of factors which we use actually.
Great. And Vijendar, you have the final word in this conversation. What is that Guru Mantra from your side?
Guru Mantra that I can bring, and which I have practiced for sure in my supply chain, is bring psychology into the supply chain. Means
That's interesting. What do you mean by that? Yeah.
exactly. So EQ, so emotional quotient, is something which we all are aware in psychology that teaches us. If I bring that into the supply chain, so awareness of my supply chain, my team, it's me. What is my demand variation? What is my efficiency of my planning? What is my team's strength in terms of, say, technical capabilities, or the kind of the weaknesses which we have within the team? And once it is like awareness of me, my supply chain, and second is awareness of others, who is my suppliers. Who's my supplier? Who is more important to him, my competition or me? What is his capability in terms of technology and also the capacity? How supportive is he, and how vulnerable he is for maybe external variations? So this is awareness of the others. If I map this way the strengths and weaknesses of the internal supply chain, and for every supplier or every commodity or every business or every sector that I am operating into, this gives me definitely a matrix of all those things what we have been talking about in terms of criticality, and also in terms of the importance to the organization and importance to the I would say resiliency of supply chain. Third thing comes up, which is as part of EQ, is like we say awareness of environment. Here awareness of what is that entire geopolitical situation, or maybe the commercially whatever the impacts which we do have because of, like you talked about Ukraine, when we talked about COVID and etc. Now whatever is happening in terms of the trade restrictions. So awareness of this entire surrounding. So now if I take these three, put together and map it, and come up with those criticalities, and come up with those action plans, and keep them in the pipeline. Not necessary that we have to implement every action. Like other panelists talked about the cost versus benefit analysis. Perfectly right, there is a cost for every action. Keep it ready, but at right point of time, if you trigger, and it doesn't take much time to complete the action, so automatically the supply chain becomes a really very agile supply chain.
Right. See, I mean, we should get an award for finishing it on time. That kind of eggs me to, I always think that the audience is, of course, a participant in this conversation. So I'll take this liberty of asking one, if there's one question that can be posed, anyone, you have this chance. Otherwise, we are done with this conversation and you have the answers, please. A quick, short question.
With respect to the pest analysis, so do you use any specific tool, or
Anyone. Anyone can answer this. Okay, Deepa.
So because it's so specific to respective industry, right? So certain things are common, but then of course you have to use your own You have to do data is there, you know, you use the general information that's available in the public domain, and plus you have your own contacts, you have your suppliers, so you use your stakeholders, plus you use your information which is available in the public domain, and that's how you arrive at your own, analysis of it, yes.
All right, so we can have rest of the conversation offline, but thank you so much. Within the short span, you guys shared all the insights, and that too great insights. Thank you for your time.